I noticed the package on a Tuesday morning. It had been sitting outside apartment 3B for 3 days, leaning against the door like it was tired of waiting. Same brown box. Same crooked label. Every morning when I walked past on the way to work, it was still there. I told myself it wasn't my business. Still, I kept looking at it. My mornings were pretty predictable. Coffee in a chipped mug. 2 pieces of toast I barely tasted. Standing by the kitchen window of my small apartment, watching people leave the building across the street like they had somewhere more interesting to be. Sometimes I'd unlock my phone and open a text thread, then close it again. There were a few of those. Conversations that ended in the middle of a sentence weeks ago. A friend who moved cities. Someone I dated briefly who stopped replying. Messages I almost sent, then didn't. After breakfast, I'd grab my keys and head into the hallway. That's when I'd see the box again. Brown tape. Slight dent in the corner. Addressed to Mara Ellis, 3B. The first morning, I just stepped around it. The second morning, I nudged it gently with my shoe to make sure it wasn't blocking the door. By the third morning, I picked it up. It wasn't heavy, just awkward enough that you had to hold it with both hands. I stood there for a second outside her door, staring at the label. I'd seen Mara before, of course. Hard not to in a building this small. She moved in a few months ago. Mid-40s maybe. Quiet. Usually carrying grocery bags or a tote bag slung over her shoulder. She had this way of saying hello that felt thoughtful, like she meant it. I knocked. Nothing. I waited, listening to the hallway. The overhead light buzzed faintly. I knocked again, a little louder. Still nothing. So I did what any normal person would do. I carried the box back to my apartment. It sat on my kitchen counter all day while I worked from home. Every now and then I'd glance at it like it might say something. Around 5 in the evening, I heard footsteps in the hallway. A door opening, then closing. I picked up the package and stepped outside. She was there, kneeling by her door, keys in one hand. For a second, she didn't notice me. Then she looked up. "Oh," she said, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Hi." Her voice was softer than I expected. I held up the box a little awkwardly. This was outside your door." She blinked at it like she was surprised it existed. "Oh my God." She stood up slowly. "That's been out there. Couple days," I said. Her eyebrows lifted. Then she laughed quietly, more at herself than anything else. "I ordered it last week. Completely forgot." I handed it to her. Our fingers brushed for half a second, just enough to notice. "Thanks," she said. "You're Daniel. 3A, right? Mara." She balanced the box against her hip while unlocking the door. There was a small pause. Then she looked back at me. "You didn't open it, did you?" I blinked. "No." She smiled. "Good. It's embarrassing." I wasn't sure if she was joking, but the way she said it made me smile too. She pushed the door open, then hesitated again. "Thanks for bringing it over," she said. Most people would have just ignored it. I shrugged. It was starting to feel like part of the hallway. That made her laugh properly this time. A warm, easy sound. Then she disappeared inside her apartment, closing the door gently behind her. The hallway got quiet again. I stood there for a moment longer than I needed to. Later that night, I was sitting on my couch scrolling through nothing on my phone when it buzzed. Unknown number. For a second I considered ignoring it. Then I opened the message. It read, "Hey, Daniel from 3A. This is Mara from next door." There was another line below it. I stared at the screen a little longer before reading it. "I opened the package, and now I kind of owe you an explanation." Her second message came a minute later. "It's a thermos." I stared at the screen, unsure how that explained anything. Then another message. Not a normal one. One of those expensive Japanese ones. I smiled without meaning to. "Okay," I typed back. Still not embarrassing. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Came back. "It keeps tea hot for like 12 hours. You're explaining the thermos very defensively." A few seconds passed. Then, "Would you like to see it?" I sat there a moment longer than necessary, thumbs hovering over the screen. "Like now? If you're not busy." I glanced around my apartment. Laptop open on the coffee table. A half-finished bowl of cereal I forgot to eat. "Sure," I wrote. Her door opened before I even knocked. She was wearing a loose gray sweater now, sleeves pushed slightly up her arms. Her hair was tied back in a way that looked like it had been done quickly. "Hi again," she said. "Hi." She stepped aside to let me in. Her apartment smelled faintly like mint tea and laundry detergent. Not cluttered, just lived in. A folded blanket on the couch. A book face down on the armrest. She held up the thermos like she was presenting evidence. Told you, she said. It was simple. Stainless steel. Clean lines. Looks like a thermos, I said carefully. She laughed under her breath. I know, but it's the exact one my ex-husband used to carry everywhere. The way she said ex-husband was casual. Practiced. I nodded, not sure what the right reaction was. So why buy the same one? I asked. She turned it slowly in her hands. Habit, maybe. A small shrug. Or curiosity. I leaned against the kitchen counter while she filled 2 cups. Steam curled up between us. She handed one to me, careful not to touch my fingers this time. Do you live alone? She asked. Yeah. By choice. I let out a small breath through my nose. By circumstances. She nodded like that answer made sense. For a minute we just stood there, sipping tea. The apartment was quiet except for a faint ticking from the wall clock. You're what? She said suddenly, glancing at me. 24. 26. Her eyebrows lifted. Oh, that's worse. Worse. For me, she said, smiling faintly into her cup. There it was. The thing we both noticed but hadn't said yet. The age gap. Not dramatic. Just there. I looked down at the tea swirling in my cup. You don't seem 26, she added. That's either good or bad. Just observant. She leaned back against the counter across from me. There was something easy about the silence between us. Not awkward exactly. Just careful. At one point she reached past me to grab a spoon from the drawer. Her arm brushed mine lightly. Neither of us moved right away. Then she pulled back like she'd remembered something. You work from home? She asked. Mostly. That explains why you noticed the package. Also explains my thrilling social life. She smiled at that, but her eyes lingered on my face a second longer than the joke required. Eventually I set the empty cup down. I should probably let you get back to your evening. She walked me to the door. For a moment we just stood there again. Then she reached out and straightened the collar of my shirt without asking. The touch was quick, almost absent-minded, but it wasn't something strangers usually did. There, she said softly. You looked slightly irresponsible. I laughed under my breath. Better now. She tilted her head, studying me for a second. Marginally. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone had finally taken the time to notice me. After that night, the hallway stopped feeling like just a hallway. I started noticing things. Like how Mara usually left for work around 8:30, always carrying the same canvas tote bag. Or how the light above our doors flickered every few minutes like it couldn't decide whether to stay on. Small details. The kind you only notice when you're looking for someone. A few days passed before I saw her again. I was coming back from the grocery store, balancing a bag against my hip, when her door opened. Oh, Daniel. She said my name like she hadn't expected it to appear right then. Hey. For a second we both just stood there, the hallway doing its usual quiet thing. Then she pointed at the grocery bag. Thrilling evening. Frozen pizza, I said. So yes. She smiled faintly. I'm making pasta, she said. Then paused. I nodded like that was normal information to exchange between neighbors. Another pause. Then she cleared her throat slightly. You could come have some. The way she said it made it sound less like an invitation and more like something that had slipped out before she thought about it. I shifted the bag in my hands. You sure? She hesitated, then nodded once. Yeah, I made too much. Her apartment felt warmer this time. The kitchen light was softer, and there was music playing quietly somewhere I couldn't see. She moved around the stove with easy familiarity, stirring something in a pan. Sit, she said, gesturing to the counter stool. I did. For a few minutes we talked about small things. Work, the weather, the building's unreliable water pressure. But the conversation kept drifting into little pauses, the kind where you become aware of someone standing very close. At one point, she reached across me to grab a glass from the cabinet. Her sweater brushed my shoulder. Neither of us commented on it. Eventually, she set a bowl of pasta in front of me. Careful, she said. It's hot. I watched the steam rise for a moment before taking a bite. Okay, I said. This is way better than frozen pizza. She leaned back against the counter, arms folded loosely. High praise. Her phone buzzed on the table behind her. She glanced at the screen. Something in her expression changed. Just slightly. Sorry, she said, turning the phone face down. Everything okay? Yeah. Too quick. Then softer. My daughter. I looked up. You have a daughter. College, she said. First year. There was a small silence. I did the math in my head without meaning to. She noticed. See, she said quietly. Worse. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out that sounded right. She picked up a spoon and started absent-mindedly stirring the empty pot on the stove. You don't have to get weird about it, she added. I'm not. You are a little. Okay, I admitted. That made her smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. For a while we just sat there again. Eventually I stood up to rinse my bowl in the sink. She stepped beside me to grab a towel. Our shoulders bumped lightly. I turned my head to apologize. She turned at the same time. For a second we were very close. Closer than we'd been before. I could see the faint line between her eyebrows when she was thinking. The way she inhaled slightly like she was about to say something. Or stop something. Neither of us moved. My hand was still resting on the edge of the sink. Her fingers brushed the back of it as she reached for the towel. Not accidental this time. Just there. She looked at my mouth. Then back at my eyes. A pause. Long enough that something could have happened. But didn't. She stepped back first. Daniel, she said softly, like the word itself might fix something. I nodded once, even though I wasn't sure what we were agreeing to. After the pasta night, things changed in quiet ways. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. Sometimes when I came home, there'd be a mug outside my door. Tea inside, still warm. No note. Just the thermos sitting beside it like a small explanation. Other nights we'd run into each other in the hallway and end up talking for 20 minutes about nothing in particular. Laundry schedules. Bad TV shows. Why the hallway light flickered like it was thinking about quitting. It felt easy. Too easy. Which was probably why Mara started pulling back. At first it was small things. Taking longer to answer texts. Ending conversations a little earlier than usual. Standing a half step farther away in the hallway. I noticed because I'd gotten used to the opposite. One evening I saw her outside the building, sitting on the low brick wall near the entrance. She had the thermos beside her and her phone in her hands. She looked up when I pushed the door open. Oh, she said. Hi. Her voice carried that careful tone again. Hey. I sat down beside her, leaving a little space between us. The street was quiet. A car passed slowly, headlights washing over the pavement. You're avoiding me, I said after a minute. She didn't look surprised. Just tired. I'm not avoiding you. You kind of are. She unscrewed the thermos lid and poured tea into the small metal cup. Steam drifted upward. I've just been busy, she said. With what? She handed me the cup instead of answering. I took it, watching her face. You do this thing, I said quietly. What thing? Where you pretend something isn't happening. Her jaw shifted slightly. Daniel. No, I get it, I added quickly. The age thing. Your daughter. The fact that I live 12 feet away from you. She let out a slow breath through her nose. You're 26, she said. I know my age. And I'm 46. The number hung there between us. Not dramatic. Just factual. I know that too, I said. She rubbed her hands together like they were cold. You think you know what this is, she said softly. And you don't. She looked at me then. Really looked. For a moment the street noise faded behind the silence between us. You're lonely, she said. I blinked. That's not. It's not an insult, she interrupted gently. I see it because I recognize it. That landed somewhere deeper than I expected. I'm not looking for a project, I said. I know. Then what are you so scared of? She laughed under her breath, but it sounded tired. Daniel, you're at the beginning of your life. And you're not. I've already made most of my mistakes. That's convenient, I muttered. Her eyes flicked back to mine. You don't understand yet. Then explain it to me. The words came out sharper than I intended. For a moment she didn't answer. Instead, she reached over and adjusted the sleeve of my jacket, smoothing a wrinkle that didn't really matter. The gesture was quiet, familiar, dangerous in its softness. Because if I let this keep going, she said slowly, eventually you're going to look at me and realize you should have chosen someone younger. Easier. I shook my head. That's not how this works. Isn't it? Her hand was still resting lightly on my arm. Neither of us moved. You make it sound like I'm temporary, I said. She hesitated, then whispered, almost to herself, aren't I? The question settled into the air between us. Neither of us seemed ready to answer it. The next morning, the hallway felt different. Not because anything had actually changed. The light still flickered every few seconds. The carpet still had that faint dent near Mara's door where the old tenant used to leave a bike. Everything looked the same, but Mara's door stayed closed. No thermos outside my door. No soft knock in the evening. No quiet "Hey, Daniel" when we crossed paths. At first, I told myself she was just busy. It was easier that way. 2 days passed. Then 3. I started noticing how often I checked the hallway when I left my apartment. Like maybe I'd catch the door opening at the same time. It never did. One night, I heard footsteps outside around 11. Her voice, low, talking on the phone. I stood in my kitchen holding a glass of water I didn't really want. I know, she was saying. I know. Pause. No, it's not like that. Another pause. Then quieter, almost tired. I'm handling it. The hallway went silent after that. I didn't open the door. Didn't want to make it obvious I'd been standing there listening like some kind of teenager. The next morning, I ran into Mr. Khalid from 2C in the elevator. He was holding a bag of groceries and humming to himself like usual. You know the lady next to you? He asked casually. Mara. Yeah. I nodded. She had someone visiting last night, he said. Tall guy? Probably her husband. The word landed strangely. Ex, I said automatically. Mr. Khalid shrugged. Still looked like a husband to me. The elevator dinged before I could respond. I spent the rest of the day pretending that conversation hadn't happened. Around 6 in the evening, I finally stepped into the hallway. Her door was slightly open. I hesitated. Voices inside. A man's voice this time. Low. Familiar in that uncomfortable way strangers sometimes are. I caught pieces of it. Not trying to start anything. Then Mara. I didn't say you were. Silence. Then the man again. You look good. I shouldn't have stayed there. But my feet didn't move. You didn't come all this way to say that, Mara replied. Another pause. I just wanted to see if you were okay, the man said. Her laugh was soft, but it didn't sound amused. I'm divorced, not broken. Something shifted inside the apartment. Cheers, maybe. Then his voice again, closer to the door. You were always stubborn. I stepped back quietly before they could see me. By the time I got back inside my apartment, my hands felt strangely empty. Like I'd been holding something I hadn't realized mattered. The next few days were quieter than usual. Mara stopped leaving her door open. No hallway conversations. No tea. Once I thought I heard her come home, but the door shut quickly before I could check. I tried to tell myself that this was normal, that neighbors didn't usually share late-night conversations on brick walls or stand too close in kitchens. Still, my phone felt heavier than usual. One night, I opened our message thread, typed something. Hey, haven't seen you around. I stared at the words for a long time, then added another line. Everything okay? The typing bubble never appeared, because I never pressed send. Instead, I locked my phone and set it face down on the table. Across the hallway, Mara's door stayed closed. And for the first time since the package showed up outside her door, the hallway felt like just a hallway again. I didn't feel heartbroken, just paused. Like life had started a sentence and forgotten how it was supposed to end. About a week passed before I saw Mara again. Long enough that the silence between our apartments started to feel permanent. I'd gotten used to not expecting anything. No tea outside my door. No messages. No accidental hallway meetings that lasted longer than they should. Just normal neighbor distance. The kind people keep when they don't want complications. It was late when I finally heard her door open again. I was in my kitchen, rinsing a plate. The sound of the hallway light buzzing came through the wall like usual, followed by soft footsteps. Before I could talk myself out of it, I stepped outside. She was locking her door, keys in one hand, a small grocery bag in the other. For a second, she didn't notice me. Then she turned. Oh, just that one word. Hey, I said. She looked a little tired. Her hair pulled back loosely, sweater sleeves covering part of her hands. Hi. The hallway light flickered above us. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then she shifted the grocery bag to her other hand. You've been quiet, she said. I almost laughed at that. Me? Well, you stopped texting. I sent exactly 0 texts before that. I said. She nodded once, like that was fair. I saw your ex, I added quietly. Her shoulders tensed just slightly. He stopped by. Yeah. We stood there again in that careful silence we'd gotten good at. Finally, she leaned back against the wall beside her door. He wanted to make sure I was okay, she said. And are you? She looked down at the floor for a second before answering. I'm figuring that out. The honesty in it made something loosen in my chest. I almost texted you, I admitted. Why didn't you? I shrugged. You seemed busy revisiting your past. She smiled faintly at that. It wasn't like that. What was it like? She took a breath, like she was deciding something. He reminded me who I used to be, she said. Back when things were simpler. And that's a bad thing. It can be. She looked up at me then. Because it also reminds you why those things ended. The hallway hummed quietly around us. You know what scared me the other night, she said. What? You didn't hesitate. About what? About me. I frowned slightly. Should I have? No, she said softly. But I did. She pushed herself off the wall and stepped a little closer. Not enough to touch. Just enough that I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. You're not temporary to me, I said before I could overthink it. The words hung there. Simple. Honest. Her mouth opened slightly, like she was about to argue. Then she stopped. You don't know that yet, she said. Maybe, I replied. But I know I'd regret pretending this doesn't matter. Another quiet pause. The kind where something real settles into the space between two people. Finally, she exhaled slowly. That's the problem, she said. What is? It matters to me too. She said it like a confession she'd been holding in her pocket for weeks. We stood there, close enough now that the distance felt intentional. Careful. Then she reached out and lightly touched my sleeve again, smoothing the fabric like she had the first time. Her fingers stayed there a moment longer this time. Okay, she said quietly. Just that. But somehow it felt like a decision. Things didn't suddenly become dramatic after that night in the hallway. There was no big declaration. No sudden shift where everything turned into something obvious. Mostly, life just kept moving. But it moved a little differently. The next morning at 8:47 a.m., I opened my door and found the thermos outside again. Same stainless steel one. Beside it was a small folded napkin, the kind Mara kept in her kitchen drawer. I picked it up and opened it. 2 words, written quickly in blue pen. Still hot. I laughed quietly to myself in the empty hallway. Inside the thermos was tea, mint again. That became a kind of routine after that. Not every morning. Just enough that I'd notice when it happened. Sometimes I'd return the thermos in the evening. Sometimes she'd knock on my door to collect it herself, standing there with that small half-smile, like she was pretending it was normal. Other nights we'd end up sitting on the brick wall outside the building, the same place where we had that conversation that almost ended everything. We talked about ordinary things. Her daughter's classes, my work deadlines, the terrible plumbing in the building. But every once in a while there'd be a quiet moment where one of us would glance at the other and remember how close we'd come to walking away. Weeks passed like that. Then one evening in early spring we ended up back in her kitchen again. The window was cracked open, letting cool air drift through the room. The same soft music played somewhere near the living room. I was leaning against the counter while she poured tea into 2 cups. You're drinking this a lot for someone who started as a coffee person, she said. Black coffee still exists, I replied. This is just competition. She slid a cup toward me. Careful, she said automatically. Still hot. I looked down at the steam rising between us. Feels familiar. She leaned back against the counter across from me, folding her arms loosely. For a moment we just stood there again, the same way we had that first night with the thermos. Except the silence didn't feel careful anymore. Just comfortable. You know, she said after a minute. I almost returned that package. What? The thermos, she clarified. I thought it was a stupid thing to keep. Why? She shrugged. Because it reminded me of the wrong person. I nodded slowly. And now? I asked. She looked at the cup in her hands, then back at me. Now it reminds me that sometimes the wrong things lead to the right door. That was the closest either of us ever got to saying it out loud. Later that night, we stepped outside together. The hallway light flickered above our doors like always. Downstairs, the street was quiet. We sat on the brick wall again, not talking much, just watching the city settle into nighttime. At one point, she nudged my shoulder lightly with hers. "You know," she said, "most people would have just ignored that package." I smiled. "Yeah." She tilted her head slightly, studying my face the way she sometimes did. "Good thing you didn't." The moment lingered there, simple, steady. No rush. No pressure to define it. Just two people who had almost missed each other. And didn't. Sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it just shows up as a thermos outside your door at 8:47 a.m., still warm. And somehow that's enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories would you like to hear next?